In this tutorial, we'll discuss about the autochords and eicosanoids. Now, first of all, let us know the points that we're going to discuss in our today's lecture. The points are, we'll know about the autochords, what autochords actually mean, and then after that, we will know about the definition of the autochords. And after that, we'll classify the autochords. Means we will know about the classification of the autochords. And after that, we'll talk about the eicosanoids. Here, according to eicosanoids, we'll discuss the meaning of eicosanoids and definition of the eicosanoids, the mechanism of the synthesis of the eicosanoids, that how the eicosanoids are actually produced. And we'll also talk about the actions of the eicosanoids in our body. Means what are the eicosanoids produced and what are their actions in the body of those eicosanoids which are produced. We know about their actions also. So let's start our discussion from the autochords. Let's start from the etymology of the autochords. What is actually the meaning of this word autochoid? This is actually composed of two words, autos, eikos. When you combine these both, they mean that self-healing or self-acting. Now, what do we mean by the self-acting or self-healing? I will tell you people this understanding in the definition. First of all, let's clear the definition. In the definition, we will know the meaning of this autochords term, self-healing or self-acting. Come to the point, definition. Autochords are actually defined as that these are the heterogeneous substances. Autochords are the heterogeneous substances, means they're different. And they are also having different pharmacological actions. Number one point, autochords are different from each other, okay? The very first point. Second point, they are having different pharmacological actions. Each autochord is having different pharmacological action. Now just clear these 2 points. The very first point, autochords are the heterogeneous substances, means we have several number of the autochords, okay? Different autochords we have. Number 2 point, they are having different pharmacological action. Each autochord has different pharmacological action, okay? Suppose we have autochord A and B. A is having one action, B is having another action. Like this, we have number of autochords and each is having different type of the action. Now the very common point that actually places all these autochords together is that autochords are produced from the tissues and they're acting again on the same tissue. Means they're actually acting locally. How? Like simple. Suppose here we have tissues. These tissues will produce some chemicals. They are known as autochords. Now these autochords produced are having very interesting job. They will come back towards the same tissues and will start acting on the same tissues from which they are produced. Suppose I produce the autochords and the autochords will come back and will start acting on me. That's it, the very understanding. So this is the very cause due to which these substances are called autochords. Self-acting or self-healing. I hope you got the meaning of self-acting, self-healing. Why the autochords are called the self-acting or self-healing? Because they are produced from certain tissues and again they are acting on the same tissues from which they are produced or from which they are made. That's it. Now let's come towards the classification of the autochords. Autochords are classified into 1, 2, 3, 4 classes. Class number 1, amino acid derived. We have some autochords which are amino acid derived, peptide derived, also called as endothelin derived, and we do have some autochords which are polypeptide derived, and we have some autochords which are lipid derived. I'll just concentrate. We have autochords which are actually derived from amino acid, and you know when amino acid chain up together they make peptide, and when peptide chain up together they make polypeptide. So we can have the autochords from the amino acid, peptide and polypeptide. And another very different class is that is actually lipid derived. So some autochords are actually derived from the lipids. And another very interesting point is that these lipid derived autochords are actually called as eicosanoids. These lipid derived autochords are actually called eicosanoids. So what are eicosanoids? One very simple point is that these are actually the autochords which are made up of the lipids. Now from here you can guess a simple definition that what are the eicosanoids? They are actually the lipid derived autochords. Simple definition. Now eicosanoids are actually etymologically they are known as eicosanoid because these eicosanoids are made up of the 20 carbon units. Okay, means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 20 carbons, from 1 to 20. When 20 carbon chain up together they make a structure. That structure is actually called as eicosanoid. Now let's come towards the definition. So how will we define now these eicosanoids? We got one definition from here that these are the eicosanoids are actually the lipid derived autochords. This was our first definition. Now let's come towards the second definition. The eicosanoids are actually the autochords that are produced by the enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of the arachidonic acid. Second definition. What are the eicosanoids? They are actually the autacoids. They are actually the autochords which are produced by the enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of arachidonic acid. Here we have arachidonic acid. So what will come? This arachidonic acid will become oxidized. So is this oxygen? This will be added in this arachidonic acid. Now this arachidonic acid became oxidized. This may be done by the help of an enzyme or without an enzyme. So you can say enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of the arachidonic acid will produce substances, and those substances are actually known as eicosanoids. Second definition is very simple. Just concentrate once again. These are the autochords which are produced by the enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of the arachidonic acid. Second definition is clear. Now you can define this eicosanoids by another way also. Now this definition, the third one, is actually a kind of simple and very logical. How? Like, the eicosanoids are the signaling molecules which are made by the enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of the arachidonic acid. Now in both the definitions we repeated the enzymatic non-enzymatic oxidation term. Okay, it's simple and easy. Just we added the autochords and signaling molecules in definitions. So in first definition we told these are the autochords. In the second definition we told that these are the signaling molecules. So both the terms are correct. You can define any way. First, second, third, these all definitions are valid for you. It is depending upon the concept, that how actually you are getting the concept of the topic. Come to the point again. So what are the eicosanoids? These are the autochords, or you can say these are the signaling molecules which are produced by the enzymatic or non-enzymatic oxidation of the arachidonic acid. So you can also get these eicosanoids from the PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acid. Now this is actually another way to obtain the eicosanoids, through PUFA. When you oxidize the PUFA, polyunsaturated fatty acids, means you can get the eicosanoids from the arachidonic acid, and you can also get them from PUFA. Now let's come towards the mechanism. Now the words that I spoke in the definitions, now we will just explain those words through this mechanism. Now how the eicosanoids are actually synthesized. Just concentrate. Our cell membrane is made up of the lipid, means it is actually lipid bilayer membrane. Lipid bilayer. What is going to happen now? Now here the term lipid means that we have lipid in this cell membrane. So on this lipid, which is known as phospholipid, on this we have some enzymes, phospholipase A2. These are going to act on these lipids, phospholipids. So what will happen? Phospholipase A2 will act on the phospholipid of the lipid bilayer membrane, and this phospholipase A2 will convert the phospholipid into arachidonic acid. Now this arachidonic acid which is produced, it is a very interesting substrate for the COX and LOX. These are the enzymes. Okay, now these both enzymes will act on these arachidonic acids produced from the phospholipid by the help of the phospholipase A2. So what will happen? Phospholipase A2 will act on the phospholipid, and it will convert the phospholipid into arachidonic acid. And now these arachidonic acid are actually substrate for the COX and LOX. So if COX interacts with the arachidonic acid, it will produce prostanoids, thromboxane. And if the LOX interacts with the arachidonic acid, it will produce leukotrienes A4, B4, C4, D4, E4, etc. So it means they will produce the leukotrienes. Now these prostanoids, thromboxanes, leukotrienes, these are actually the eicosanoids. Now you got the definition that these are produced by the oxidation of the arachidonic acid. So we got the arachidonic acid from the lipid bilayer, and due to which we call these eicosanoids lipid derived, because these are made from the lipid. Now let's come towards the actions of these eicosanoids produced. So we cleared what? Meaning, definition, and production, means synthesis of the eicosanoids. Now let's know the actions of the eicosanoids. Now these prostanoids, we have actually about 9 types of the prostanoids known as prostaglandins. They've got different jobs. Now just I will tell you some of the jobs that are actually common in all the almost in all the prostanoids and prostaglandins. Now these prostanoids are actually involved in pain, fever, inflammation, and bronchodilation mainly. Some prostaglandins, they're actually dilating the bronchioles, and they're also involved in the mucus production in the GIT, in the stomach. So the mucus produced in the stomach is actually protecting your stomach. They're actually produced by the prostaglandins. And one very important point is that some of the prostaglandins are bronchodilators and some of the prostaglandins are bronchoconstrictors. Now, most of the prostaglandins are actually dilating the bronchioles, but one actually known is the PGF2 alpha. This is the one that is actually constricting the bronchiole. Well, the thromboxane have got interesting job, that is they are vasoconstricting and they are actually clotting the blood. And prostanoids are also playing a role regarding blood point of view, acting like anticoagulants. So thromboxanes are actually the coagulants and prostaglandins are the anticoagulants. So we need these both to perform a normal function in the body, or you can say to maintain the homeostasis. Well, now let's come towards the Lox pathway. The products of the Lox pathways are actually the leukotrienes, and we do have number of leukotrienes, A4, B4, C4, D4. Now these are actually the worst, you can say, eicosanoids. The worst autochords are the leukotrienes. Autochords, eicosanoid, okay? These are the worst one. Now these are actually responsible to spasm the bronchioles. You know, whenever there is a kind of chronic asthma, in that case, these leukotrienes are responsible to worsen the structure of the bronchioles, means they actually damage further the structure of the bronchioles. They tighten the bronchioles, they do the spasm of the bronchioles. Along with that, they release some other substances known as protease, by means of which they are actually damaging the tissues of the bronchioles. So like this, the asthma becomes worsened. So in short, you can say that the leukotrienes are actually the worst type of the eicosanoids or the Autochords. So this is short from my side regarding the Autochords and eicosanoid. I hope you got